What would happen if, instead of avoiding stress, we leaned into it, at least on occasion, to build resilience? Hello, you're listening to Where What If Becomes What's Next from Carnegie Mellon University, where we ask the bold questions that become innovations for the betterment of humanity. I'm your host, Randy Scott, and in this episode, we're looking inward at our minds, learning about ways to better cope with stressors from the external world, and how artificial intelligence can help us know if these techniques are, in fact, working. The world appears particularly stressful right now, from economic uncertainty to climate anxiety, conflicts around the globe, and political polarization. There's a lot to feel stressed out about. And it might seem contradictory that AI and tech could offer some solutions when our phones can, in particular, be a source of stress. I'm thinking of that ever-growing email inbox, news apps constantly pinging you with new headlines, or doom scrolling on social media. Which is why I wanted to talk with David Creswell. He's the William S. Dietrich II Professor in Psychology and Neuroscience at Carnegie Mellon University. He's also a co-founder of Equa Health, where he co-developed a different kind of meditation app.
We like to think about Equa as being a kind of a personal meditation coach in your pocket.
The Equa app is based on a scientific method from 15 years of research at CMU. David's goal? To shift how we as a society think about the psychology of stress, so that we can all learn not simply how to be less stressed out, but how to become more resilient and find more fulfillment from the people and ambitions we care the most deeply about in life. I think the best place to start this discussion is actually a rather straightforward question. What exactly is stress?
It's actually a very hard thing to talk about because there's a lot of elements to people's stressful experience. Like, what's the sort of stressor that maybe it's losing a loved one, for example, or, maybe it's an exam that's coming up. So you have to kind of think about the nature of the stressor. But then also, like, there's all these sort of cognitive patterns that come with stress. There's all the emotional responses, like feeling overwhelmed, feeling fearful, feeling angry, feeling like you're not in control. And then there's all the like downstream effects, like it changes your cortisol levels, these stress hormones, your catecholamines, it's increasing your heart rate and blood pressure responses. So there's a whole physiology to your stress response. And so, stress is actually quite an interesting process that we can unpack.
All right, well, let's unpack it a little more, especially this physiological aspect, because you said stress can have this cascading effect from pervasive thoughts in our head that can eventually impact our actual physical being.
I think the first important point to think about with stress is it's a very beautiful system for helping us manage difficult experience. Historically, it was maybe running away from a predator. And, in today's world, it may be really kind of turning on our attention and focus for a really difficult public speech we might need to give in front of others. And in the short term, that's really helpful to sort of turn on the body's stress response. But the current thinking is that to the degree that we're always turning on this stress response, and let's face it, many of us create stressors in our heads or sort of think about some stressor that might be coming up and we ruminate on it and perseverate on it for months at a time. That can impair our sleep. You're up at 3 a.m. sort of thinking about some stressor that may or may not happen. Now, this is when stress starts to get really dangerous and harmful. Work here at Carnegie Mellon has shown that to the degree that we're having stress responses or having a stressful life, that can increase our risk for getting the cold or flu. And so, there's a broad range of kind of stress-related health and disease outcomes that we think about with stress. And typically they really come in the form of people who are having recurrent types of stress responses, sort of significant stress that's prolonged over periods of time.
Okay, to that point, it does feel like there's a lot to be stressed out about in the world right now. Is stress, in fact, on the rise? Are people in 2025 more stressed out than ever before? Or are we just, talking about it more?
So we have this perceived stress scale. It's been around for decades. And this group here at Carnegie Mellon actually looked at this perceived stress level and how it might change in nationally representative samples over time. And essentially what they do find is a sort of a decade by decade increase in people's perceptions of stress. And, when you really look at people and their perceptions, I think that stress levels are going up and that people are struggling. And it's not getting easier. Now, I think if you look at this from the perspective of just general life event stress and put it in a much bigger historical frame, we could probably say, hey, what's going on with people here? Because in fact, if you look at objectively, technology and advances and to some extent are making our lives a lot easier and giving us more time back. Looking at our great great grandparents who, didn't have a lot of these modern appliances that saved us significant time, didn't have access to information so quickly. And, they were sort of living hard lives and not, having accessible the modern medicine benefits to help us, treat our pains, discomforts, and infectious diseases that would sort of just wipe people out. So we've got a lot of modern conveniences, and objectively speaking, looking at our sort of evolutionary past, have it pretty good right now. So what's going on there? And I do wonder if so much of the kind of modern world, in terms of giving us these conveniences, sort of creates a comfort culture where we have so much comfort in our lives, we don't actually have to spend much time in this sort of discomfort zone. And in fact, I think might be contributing to increasing stress levels over time.
So, stress, or at least the perception of stress, might be on the rise in society because we've gotten too comfortable?
You could sort of think about this as like, we have our comfort zone, we have our discomfort zone, and we have our overwhelm zone, right? So I'm not talking about getting maxed out and being totally overwhelmed. I'm talking about the sort of benign discomforts of daily life and how actually those can be tools for building these skills of resilience. And we don't spend that much time in these discomfort zones. And so, I think that one of the opportunities that we have is to sort of rethink how much time we spent in the zone of discomfort.
All right, well, let's stick with this notion of the zone of discomfort. You came to CMU in 2008 and helped start the Health and Human Performance Laboratory, where you study what makes people resilient under stress. It's interdisciplinary work: health psychology, neuroscience, immunology, and other areas, because as you mentioned, stress impacts our minds and bodies. So, what does that resilience under stress research look like for you now?
We're spending a lot of time in my lab kind of thinking about these ideas and really thinking about ways to rebrand things like meditation into not thinking about it like meditation is a place where I go to relax, to seek comfort. But in fact, meditation is a place where I go to train my mind and create some discomfort, some benign discomforts. In fact, meditation is really about sitting down and then starting to notice how you're getting bored or agitated or noticing physical discomfort, really building these skills around how to change your relationship to discomfort.
So, then how can people build skills around changing their relationship with discomfort and ultimately managing their stress better?
Yeah, I think the beauty of the where the scientific research is at right now is that there really is a broad buffet of options for people who want to think about learning stress management skills and trying to build these muscles of resilience.
And your lab is really focused on mindfulness meditation training, though. How does that help hone those muscles of resilience?
Over the last 20 or so years in particular, there's been a lot more looking at the human brain and putting humans into the neuroimaging scanners to sort of look at how their brain is responding under stress. And, reliably, we see a network of brain regions that seem to be important in sort of turning on the brain's alarm system, turning on this sort of stress or fight or flight response. Most principally, it seems to be this sort of small almond shaped structure at the base of our brain called the amygdala. We're generally finding that mindfulness meditation training turns down these sort of hot brain stress response. So it seems to kind of turn down the activity and connectivity of the amygdala and sort of gating that kind of brain stress alarm system. We also find that mindfulness meditation training also sort of rewires and changes the activity of the brain's prefrontal cortex, that front part of the brain that is especially large in us humans, that seems to be important in managing our emotions and planning for the future. So, meditation has these nice effects in terms of really changing the brain's stress resilience response over time.
Quickly, before we move on with your area of focus, What else is on the buffet of options?
Certainly, there's cognitive behavioral therapy approaches for stress management that are out there. There are guided relaxation programs that can be really helpful for folks. And, there's also work to suggest that even things like writing about your deepest thoughts and feelings through journaling or, engaging in physical exercise can be really helpful for managing stress as well, right? You go into exercise, it feels physically uncomfortable, but over time, you start to build those muscles of resilience. You don't feel like the discomfort bothers you anymore. In fact, it becomes something welcome that you can lean into, and in fact, can really help transform how you deal with physical discomfort in your body. So, exercise is a beautiful tool, for training your brain and resilience. I think it's really about helping people start to look at this buffet around the different evidence-based strategies and to try ones that they think might be best suited to their interests and needs.
But the underlying theme is leaning into the discomfort to build your resilience skills?
The discomfort might be the secret sauce to the whole thing. And or maybe I should say the leaning into discomfort might be the secret sauce to these practices, because it's training a particular mindset towards all the discomforts that we have in our body and in our minds. And each time we do that, I like to call these equanimity reps. Right? Equanimity is this capacity to really be at peace with the push and pull of our experience. I know equanimity could be a weird word for many people, but broadly, it's this idea of sort of meeting experience with sort of a calm, open mind. And whether it's meditation, exercise, or otherwise, these practices sort of force us into bringing more peace to that push and pull of our experience, that capacity to sort of lean in. And that I think each time we do these types of equanimity reps, each time we kind of lean in and open to difficult or uncomfortable experience, we're sort of changing our brain's response to how we react to difficult experience. And I think to the degree you can do a lot of these equanimity reps, you're sort of building a more resilient brain so that now when you're out in the world and some really difficult life stressor is going to hit or has just hit, you're noticing that you react in a different way. You're not getting caught in that sort of emotional reactivity mode and instead sort of saying, hey, like I've been here before, like I know, how to relate to difficult or uncomfortable experience, perhaps not reacting in the same way. And so, in that way, I do think that these different stress management approaches can be really helpful for sort of training a resilient brain, training a resilient mind in ways that when you're dealing with big stressors, you don't react to them in the same way.
Well, this feels like the perfect time to take a break. When we come back, we'll learn more about David's customizable meditation app and hear how AI is driving change in stress management.
This podcast is brought to you by Carnegie Mellon University. Located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, CMU is a private, international research university, consistently ranked among the top universities in the world. Its trailblazing research is focused on creating, defining, and accelerating the future of artificial intelligence. For more information, please visit ai.cmu.edu.
Welcome back. You're listening to Where What If Becomes What's Next from Carnegie Mellon University. Today we've been talking with Dr. David Creswell, a psychologist and CMU professor whose work is reframing how we approach stress management. A big focus for you and your colleagues the past few years has been how to take all of this scientific research on stress and leaning into discomfort and turning that into some real-world tools for the average person. Enter your meditation app, Equa, short for equanimity. What, in your view, sets Equa apart from mindfulness meditation apps?
So, one of the things we were really noticing was that most of the meditation apps really weren't personalized or interactive in ways that were meeting people where they are with their meditation. After all, on any given day, you may be really sleepy and distracted, or you may be going really deep with your meditation practice on an app. And we wanted to sort of meet people where they are and give them customized guidance. So we have this interactive element.
What does that look like?
So from our clinical trials, we've been developing curriculum that we know really can help folks in terms of their stress reduction. And we kind of ramp up some of the equanimity skills training components, this capacity to really be welcoming of experience and even unpleasant experience. I think most meditation apps out there, they have these large kind of libraries, and I think users oftentimes feel overwhelmed. And so we're trying to take away some of the overwhelm and give people very specific curriculum journeys where we're sort of helping them in sequential and a more perhaps effective ways to learn these skills. We also really were concerned that like a lot of people don't really know if their meditation skills are improving over time or not, and really whether meditation is working for them. And a lot of people don't stick around on these apps because they don't really know. And so we've been building ways to give people that feedback. And we've been developing a whole new set of sort of AI assisted technology around respiration tracking.
Interesting. So how does that work?
We're finding that people's breathing patterns while they meditate tell us a whole lot about whether they're going deep with their meditation and whether they're building mindfulness skills over time. And so we're basically using the phone's accelerometer. You could imagine placing your phone on your chest, on your lower diaphragm, and we can use the z-axis of that accelerometer to tell us, how you're actually breathing, and we can give that feedback to people. So at the end of meditation sessions, they get a feedback graph that shows them how their respiration rate was changing over the course of the meditation and what the ideal zone for what we're looking for that meditation. And then we're using machine learning and AI to sort of build predictive algorithms where we can take these breathing signals and with about 83 to 87% accuracy as of about today, we're just looking at this data, in fact, we can predict whether their mindfulness skills were improving or not in that meditation session. And so you can imagine now as a user, you have a way to start to track when sessions are going well for you and start to see those physiologic changes. Because after all, if we're thinking that meditation is, it's like a mental workout, this is not just mellowing out with us. This is coming and doing a mental exercise class with us and training your brain. We want to be able to support people and give them that feedback so that they can kind of see how their mastery is growing and developing over time.
I'm thinking that tracking breathing problems also helps you continue to refine and develop the app's curriculum for its users. What are some other advances in AI that are boosting the work you do?
We're also using AI and the sort of advanced features of these large language models to think about ways that we can further customize our meditation training. We've sort of created a curriculum and set of skills that we want to train people in. But, people come to this with different challenges in their life and different goals and motivations. I think a patient who's coming to this with irritable bowel syndrome and just this real difficult sort of pain in their gut that kind of recurs periodically, they might want something different in terms of how they get customized meditation training from us, from, the elite basketball player who wants to use this to improve their free throw shooting performance, in the championship game. And those sort of goals and motivations, I think, allow us to kind of to layer in large language models and the AI capabilities there to still give people our curriculum, but perhaps in a way that feels like it's being spoken to more directly to you and your goals. And so I think that's an exciting advance. And I think a lot of companies these days are really working on AI chatbots. And a year ago, I would have told you I didn't think that was going to be a near-term goal because there were too many challenges. But because of, I think, the acceleration and the quality of what these LLMs can do, and also the text-to-voice conversion of these scripts, really opens up so many doors for us to be able, I think, reach new people.
Okay, what's next for stress management, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see AI fueling innovation in the field?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with the science of stress management, it's been sort of fairly like siloed in small labs where, we do these sort of simple, small scale intervention studies. And, we're starting to see this with some exercise apps where I think, what are there, 6 billion smartphones on the planet? Smartphones are ubiquitous these days, but I think it opens up ways for us to really do much broad science in terms of, instead of studying 300 patients in the lab, I can now study 3,000 or 30,000 people out in the world. And with these new technologies for sort of monitoring people's health, we're really, I think, at a place where there's going to be a major inflection point on the science in this space, where we're going to be able to start doing pretty large scale studies, and that we can all engage in research in ways that may not feel like obtrusive or onerous on our time and schedule. So I'm really excited to be kind of working in the science in this space, and we're developing a new Center for Modern Digital Health here at Carnegie Mellon, where we're going to be focused on looking at these sort of translational opportunities for really, I think, moving population health. So, I think that's something to stay tuned on in terms of really starting to watch the science accelerate in more robust ways with really large stress management trials in large population groups. And so I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks to my guest, Dr. David Creswell, and thanks to you for listening. Please check the show notes where you'll find links to additional resources for this episode. And to learn more or contact us with a story, idea, or comments, please visit cmu.edu/what's-next-podcast. If you are enjoying this show, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast site and share with friends. And be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. You've been listening to Where What If Becomes What's Next from Carnegie Mellon University, where we are asking the bold questions that become innovations for the betterment of humanity. Stay tuned and stay curious.